Hi there and welcome. My name is Loree. We are going to run through a quick tutorial on how to do a reproduction Swedish countryside doorway. We have a brand new structure here and it's styled, it's overly large and it's styled in a bit of a barn type style. We are going to be applying some of the chocolate fusion mineral paint onto this and then a bit of a resist, followed by milk paint, which will be chipping off here and there. And that is to make it appear more old world and very, very old. And then we're going to be coming along with the milk paint and doing a lime wash on the walls, just to enhance that, that atmosphere of old world rustic. Follow along, we're going to show you step by step on how to quickly achieve this old world look. Again, this is a reproduction look, so these doors are brand new. They have very sharp lines, so I want to make it appear quite old. I'm going to be rounding off the edges using a sander and just make it look like it's been used for over 100 years. Don't forget to wear your safety goggles and your dust mask because this guy really kicks up a lot of dust, and safety first. Using the sander, we rounded off a lot of these straight edges, and now I want to add another layer of distressing to make sure that these doors look very old. I'm going to be putting a few little nicks, and right in the middle of the door here, also chiseling out some of these that you would have actually hand chiseled back then. And at this point in time, since it was done by a machine, we want to make it look a little bit older than it currently does. I'm really happy with our distressing marks that we physically made on these doors. They're going to look very old. Now comes the point where we need to apply a product that's going to adhere to this very shiny surface. So we are going to be using fusion mineral paint in the color chocolate. And this is the reason why the milk paint is going to be able to adhere to this without any other kind of special primers. Simply allow the chocolate to dry and then come along with the milk paint. To do the chocolate application, we have two of the Stahlmeister rollers. So Jenny and I are going to do a little bit of a competition. We have two different sizes here. One is a 10 centimeter, the other one is a 12 centimeter. That's the length. But there's also a bit of a diameter difference as well. So the main benefit for this is to do large, flatter jobs very quickly with the 12 centimeter. This is the most common size, but if you have a lot to do, this is the product that you want to use. The other great thing about Stahlmeister rollers is the fact that they are completely washable. Just don't allow the paint to dry on them. Pop them off of the handle, pop it into some water, and then you can put it into the washing machine, and then after they dry, you can reuse them over and over again. We have a mini competition going on here, and we are going to be using two different size rollers. I'm using the 12 centimeter with a little bit larger diameter of the Stahlmeister rollers, and Jen has the 10 centimeter. So the competition is how fast can we paint our door? So I'm going to paint one, Jen's going to paint the other, and we're just going to see how much further and faster you can get the job done with the right applicator. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, go! Well, I think I won definitely because the diameter is a little bit larger as well as the length, and I'm able to deposit more paint with every pass. And we haven't done the most prettiest job. We just want to put a very light layer as a primer for the milk paint that's going to be coming along. And of course we picked the color brown because where we're going to have the chippiness is it's going to look like an old wood underneath. Again, using the fusion mineral paint, that adheres to pretty much anything that's not moving. So this is a really shiny veneer door, and we need to apply the fusion mineral paint first so that the milk paint can adhere to the fusion mineral paint. And right now, just using a brush, we're getting into all the little nooks and crannies where it's still quite shiny. Now, if we were to put milk paint on those areas right now. It's just going to fall right off. So we need to have our base coat of the chocolate first. We're going to be waiting for an hour for the chocolate to completely dry before we mix up our Sturbridge white milk paint and apply it. Prior to doing that, we're going to put a little bit of a resist here and there of our salad bowl finish. And what that's going to do is make sure that the white milk paint does not adhere in certain areas, because we do want to have a bit of chippiness here and there. Again, just to make it look like a real aged door. Waiting for the Fusion Mineral Paint chocolate on the doors to dry before we can milk paint them. In the meantime, I have these parged walls on either side of the door. We're going to be doing, a bit of a stage set. I'm going to be doing a lime wash on top of these darker colors. So it's going to have a little bit of a darker undertone on this side, and on this side we're going to have a lighter undertone. So I've picked two different milk paint colors, the Dusty Rose, which is a light muted pink, and we have Matinee, which is sort of a gray blue, and that's going to subtly shine through, so to speak, the white lime wash that we're going to be doing on the walls. I'm going to show you really quickly how to mix it. Not going to be pretty. It does not have to be super smooth. In fact, I want a little bit of texture, have it a bit chunky. So again, just a little over 1 part water to 1 part powder. I'm going to put a little bit more powder in than normal. So starting with the Dusty Rose, this is a gorgeous color. Kind of reminds me of a muted salmon pink. I'm not going to be using any kind of mechanical mixer here, not even a whisk. I'm just literally going to use my brush. And just put the powder into the water. It starts to dissolve right away. And some of the Matinee. Actually, I'm going to put a little less water in there and make the Matinee a little thicker. It's going to be going directly onto the parged plaster. No primer needed, no special prep. Okay, so using your brush, just mix the milk paint together. Takes about a minute to dissolve. And you just want to introduce all the powder to the water and then let it sit for about a minute and then give it another stir. This milk paint, limestone paint, is really, when it dries, it's super hard. And that's because of the limestone content. And you can kind of see right away, this is quite a bit thicker. If you mix it really thick, you can do some embossing stencils if you would like to have some kind of design on your wall. But right now we're just going to add a bit of color to give that light undertone. So that I can actually use right away. It's ready to go. And this, let's just give it another little stir. Yep, that's ready to go as well. So we'll just start to apply it to the parged wall, and it'll take about 10 minutes to dry. And then we'll see how we're doing with our chocolate. Our plan is to do a semi-translucent lime wash using our Sturbridge white, but we want to have a nice undertone, and we chose the two colors Matinee, which we've mixed quite thickly. In fact, it's thick as muffin mix. So just adding a little bit more texture onto our walls. And again, a little bit of color here and there. I'm just going to be somewhat imperfectly applying this. And I'm going to mix it up a little bit. And of course, when we come along with our lime wash, you're going to see just a hint of this color shining through here and there. I think that'll be enough of the Matinee. And now we've mixed this just pretty much the regular 1-to-1. So it's quite thin on its own, the milk paint, and just a little bit of undertone color here and there. On the other side, of course, I used much darker colors, but on this side, we just wanted a much lighter effect. You'll see a little pop of green, perhaps. That was the original paint. Just in case when you're applying the lime wash of white, if you go quite thinly, you'll be able to see these colors shining through. And it's just random. It's just to make it appear as though it's been painted several times, and then your last step was the lime wash. In about 15 to 20 minutes, this will be dry, and then we can go ahead with our lime wash using the Sturbridge White milk paint. Now that the paint has dried, and keeping in line with our vintage Swedish doorway look, we are going to apply a resist. We want to do this prior to applying the milk paint because we actually do want the milk paint to fall off here and there, kind of giving a little bit of a chippy look. In the areas where we want to have it appear worn, we'll just simply use some sandpaper. We have a few products that are available that do act as a resist, whether it's our tung oil or our hemp oil, even our beeswax finishes or our furniture wax, but I do prefer the salad bowl finish. And the reason why is it's got a little bit of extra oil in there, and it is a guaranteed chippy effect. This is a food safe beeswax, and all you need to do is take a little dab and just apply it to the areas where you want the chippy to occur. I have a little bit of beeswax, and now I'm going to apply it into the areas where it would have normally received a lot of wear and tear, especially around the doorknob that's going to be placed here. Just gently apply it. If you want a flatter area to really have the milk paint fall right off and you see this darker color wood, just pat it here and there. And not a worry, you don't have to remember where these resist areas are. The milk paint will fall off. I want a lot of these edges as well to be showing. I want to show a dark wood popping through. At the bottom, I'm going to apply quite a bit, as well as the other side where the doorknob and latch is going to be affixed. I'm not applying too much, just enough to see a sheen. That will be enough to stop the milk paint from adhering to the chocolate fusion mineral paint. Now finished applying the salad bowl finish onto the areas where I really want the milk paint not to adhere at all. And in fact, I want it to chip and fall right off. Again, we're trying to make an old rustic door. Now comes the time where we're going to be mixing the milk paint. And again, we're going to be doing a regular standard mix, which is 1 part water to 1 part powder. I'll be making a fair amount, so I've got a larger whisk than normal and a larger bowl. So there's 1 part water, and it's the second part. And now 2 parts of the Sturbridge White milk paint powder. I have my 1 part powder to 1 part water, and now just do a little mix using my whisk. And you don't need a mechanical mixer for this. It dissolves quite readily in the water. So just giving it, making sure that the powder comes into contact with the water so it can dissolve. And then it needs about a minute. You can continue to stir it at this point in time, or just let it settle for the minute and then stir it. But you really want to ensure that everything gets a chance to dissolve, and it just takes just a quick minute. About the same amount of time as it is to stir a can of paint. It's been a minute, and I've given it another quick little stir, and it feels great. I also have at my disposal a couple of different sizes of brushes, because once I start, I'm not sure, just getting into the edges. This 4-inch wall brush will make the job faster, and then I've got this little 3-inch. So just have it ready, and I'm going to be loading up my brush, and you can see the thickness of the paint. It's a bit like a table cream consistency. There's nothing added to it. I simply mixed the water and the powder together. There's no bonding agent because the milk paint adheres very well to the Fusion Mineral paint. Brush is loaded, and now I'm going to start with one continuous stroke from the top to the bottom. These are rather large doors. You'll see how the coverage with the paint, the milk paint, especially in white, you will need 2 coats to get a solid opaque coverage. See what's happening right here? The resist is working. This is immediate resist. We just leave it be. You don't want to brush back and forth on that. That is where the beeswax has been placed, and those areas, the milk paint will fall right off. And remember, this is exactly what we wanted to make it look like, an old door. There we go. We're just going to leave that be. I'll start painting the interior part. Once that has dried, if I do want another coat, not a problem. You can put a second coat on here. It's not going to adhere to any of those areas that the beeswax is sitting on. Before you reload your brush, just give it a little stir, right? The heavy limestone settles to the bottom. You just want to, a couple of drips happening here, so I'm just going to take my brush and fix this. Top to bottom. Not too much pressure. All the way down. There we go. Now I like to do the panels, especially on a door, along with the grain, so to speak. So you've got one panel going up here, one down here, and then a cross panel, top and bottom. Reload your brush, little stir. Not too much paint. I mean, the one thing about the wall brush, it holds a lot of product, which is great. There we go. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky around the hinges. It's going to hold a lot of paint, so I am expecting quite a few drips, but no worries. Slap it on and then fine tune it after. Another great tip, if you would like to manipulate your finish, say you want to get some cracking in there, or you really want to force some more chippy, use your hair dryer. Normally I hold the dryer about 4 inches away from my surface just to hasten the drying process. If you hold it closer, you'll definitely get some chippy happening. If you hold it a little bit further away, you'll get that minute crackle look. I'm really loving this crackle look. But I have a resist here and I want that chippiness. The milk paint that has been applied is a little bit thin, so I'm going for a second coat so that I can get that chipping right off. There is some chippy happening here, but I want more. So what I'm going to need to do is apply a thicker layer of milk paint so that it will chip off. Really excited to finish these doors up, but I'm really super excited to see what this looks like on the wall. So crosshatch technique. Using the Sturbridge white. And again, we're going to have just little pops of color showing through. What's also super cool, while the paint's still wet, if you wanted to use a spritzer bottle and just hit it, just make your own little drip lines. So the more water you use, the more you can kind of wash it off of that color here and there. You can go for so many looks, and you can just play around with it while the paint's wet. And if it dries and you don't like it, just put another thin coat on. See the undertone of blue showing through, and also over here, a little bit of pink. It'll be more noticeable once the paint has dried. I'm going to go ahead and paint the rest of this wall, the door, and the far wall. Come back tomorrow and see how I feel. If it needs a second coat, I'll put another coat on at that point in time. Otherwise, We'll start to put the hardware on the door, and I can't wait to show you the finished results. Our first coat is dry, and now it's time to put on our second coat so it's a more vivid and opaque white color. And also we're going to have chunks of paint falling off those areas that have the resist on it. This side of the door is still a little bit wet, and here's a tip. There's a few little drips happening, so make sure that you have another brush handy just so that you can get rid of those little drips here and there before they completely harden. Again, give your milk paint a little bit of a stir. Remember, the limestone is heavy and it always sinks to the bottom. Now, reload your brush, tap off the excess, and then top to bottom, so I love the opaque finish that it's given me now with the second coat. Okay, you get a lot more coverage on your second coat, as you can see. And then we're also going to have a considerable contrast with that brown dark wood popping through the chippy areas. Not to worry, the areas where we applied the beeswax resist, it's still there. And even if I came along with the third coat, you're still going to have chippy coming off in those areas. I'm going to go ahead and give the two doors a full second coat. When it's dry, I'm going to apply the beeswax, and that's when the chipping is going to occur. It's going to come off as I am applying the beeswax, and we're going to see those worn areas of wood popping through. Our second coat of the Homestead House Sturbridge White milk paint has dried, and I've achieved what I was going for, which is crackle in some areas and chippy where I've put the resist. Now, coming along with our steel wool, going to do a little bit of an aggressive distressing just to have a little bit more of the Sturbridge White fall off. Just using a steel wool scrubber here for cleaning your pots, and I'm just going to apply a medium amount of pressure. You'll be able to see how you'll get some more chippy right away. Look at that. So you can see the flakes of milk paint falling right off, and that is because we put that resist on top of the chocolate. This is where the handles are going to go, so a lot of distressing is going to be in this particular area. I also wanted distressing up the sides here. Check that out. You can even probably use your finger in some areas where there's a lot of beeswax left. This will truly look authentically old. I'm going to go ahead with my steel wool and hit all the high points on this door that would have naturally received some wear and tear. And then I'm going to come along with the furniture wax and seal it. These brand new doors are starting to look like 100 years old. Time to seal it with our furniture wax. If this was an outside project, I would definitely use our tung oil. Maybe cut it with a bit of mineral spirits, a 10% initial coat, and then a full coat for your second coat. And that will withstand the exterior elements. If it was also inside, you could use the hemp oil if you like, but I'm going to go with the Hills of Tuscany scent furniture wax. Using my 24, so this is the largest beeswax brush from the Stallmeister collection, and it's just a larger applicator so that this job can get done very quick. There won't be much of a color change, very slight on the lighter colors of milk paint, but if it was the darker milk paint, for instance coal black, it will go from a gray to a deep jet black. I find our furniture wax is as soft as butter, so easy to use. I will not be using the beeswax on the walls. There's no need to seal that, but because these doors are going to be used a lot, and I know that it may get dirty over time due to handprints and fingerprints, the beeswax is just going to protect that. A very thin layer is used, so I've got quite a bit over here. I'm just offloading my brush here. I'm going to pick some more up here. You do not need a lot of beeswax, the smallest, thinnest layer, and then you allow it to dry for about an hour and give it a bit of a buff, depending on your sheen level. Adding an extra layer of age to the doors behind me, I'm going to go with a rust technique using the milk paint in a couple of different colors, a little bit of water, a hair dryer if I want it to look a little bit crusty, and then I came along with an antiquing wax. I wanted to make it look a bit dirty, and it really also accentuates the cracks that are found on the door. So I'm going to be showing you very quickly how to get that rust technique on the hinges and also that extra layer of antiquing wax. The first thing that we did to the milk paint after it had dried was apply some of the furniture wax, and we are using the Hills of Tuscany today as well, because putting on the antiquing wax, I want to make it a little bit more bold and a heavier placement at the bottom where it would normally be a bit dirty. And then also, the higher I get into the door, I'm going to keep it very, very light. I'm only going to be using a tiny bit of the aging wax compared to the furniture wax, but I'm able to do the whole door with one of these containers. Now, before we do that, we're going to add a bit of a rust to the hinges. I'm going to be using the milk paint, 3 different colors. I'm using the Provincial Walnut Stain, as well as the Aperol Spritz color in the Milk Paint by Fusion, and the Coal Black in the Homestead House. So you use very little water. In fact, I'm just going to use the spritzer. Ta-da, always have these handy. I'm going to be using the pointed sash, the number 12, which is the smallest size that we have. We also have the 14 and the 18. This is the classic series. It has the combination of the natural bristle as well as the polyester bristle. And the smallest amount of water I'm going to be using. I'm just trying to keep the milk paint a bit crusty to make it look like actual rust. It's super cool. So I want to create a rust technique around where you would have had the bolts or the screws rust, and I want just the ever so slightly amount of rust kind of, you know, dragging down, dripping down a bit. So applying a little bit of a mist of water. There we go. And I'm also going to put just the tiniest a bit on my working surface, not right on the milk paint, but just so I can dip my brush, the tip of the brush in, and then dip it into the milk paint. I don't really want to mix the milk paint. I just want to be able to have the milk paint touch the moist area here. And because I'm not mixing it, it's going to stay relatively crusty. Smallest amount. I love the Aperol Spritz because of the bright orange, but once you hit that with some of the antiquing wax, it's going to look exactly like rust. You can cake it on a little bit more. Just hold it there a little bit. You can also use a hair dryer if you have something that you want to crack right away. Just hit it with a hair dryer. That's perfect. Just the lightest mist, and you'll see how the water will start to drip down, and it's going to bring some of the milk paint pigment with it, and it's going to replicate rust. Now, I'm going to apply a little bit too much just to kind of show you how easy it is to rectify anything that, you know, if you don't like the look, just dab it with a rag. And if you do like that look, you can hit that with a hair dryer if you like. Totally up to you. That's going to come dripping down. You can pre-wet this area so it can come down even further. And you see how this is dragging down? So that's going to dry, and it's going to look like little driplets of rust. At this point, I'm going to add that next layer of antiquing using the antiquing wax. And what I have here is our aging wax from Fusion Mineral Paint. Not using too much. This is heavily pigmented, so I'm probably going to be able to do the whole door just with that. So I have the end of a container, so I'm going to contaminate that, so to speak, with a little bit of this antiquing wax using the lid. I'll be using my lid as a mixing tray, so to speak, and now I'm going to be using the residue of the furniture wax, which was lavender scented, Fields of Lavender. It's gorgeous if you ever get a chance to use it. And just putting my Stahlmeister wax brush. I'm using the really large one, the number 24, because I have a large project and I want it done pretty quickly. So I'm mixing a little bit of the plain, clear furniture wax in with the aging furniture wax. And I'm just going to use the surface of the door to mix it. So starting from the bottom, because that's where more of the dirtiness, if you will, would have settled. And the higher I get to the door, the clearer the wax that I'm going to be working with will be, because I'm going to be adding more and more clear wax to this mixture. So we're going to start at the bottom. I'll be putting most of it on this horizontal surface, and then I wouldn't mind for some of the antiquing wax to go into these grooves where it would have collected some dirt over time. Now it's really heavy there. I'm going to be coming back and reloading my brush as I work. See these cracks here? It's going to really accentuate those cracks, especially when I wipe back the wax. At this point, I'm just depositing the wax, and it's really as smooth as butter at this point. I'm going to be also depositing a little bit more along the edges here of the hinge, because remember the top parts, that's where dirt will have naturally settled. And it's also at this point that adding the beeswax here to the milk painted rusted areas really darkens that milk paint, and it looks like a perfect rust color. It's super easy to work with. Just apply a thin layer over the area. And now what I'm going to do is grab a little bit more of the clear wax, and I'm going to bring up some of this antiquing color up higher into the door, because that's a lot of antiquing wax on that surface. I'm not going to leave it there. There we go. Can you see those cracks there? Look at that. It's really accentuating. And I just thought, you know, the white doors looked a little too pristine. So this extra layer of antiquing is just what it needed. I'm going to show you just in this one area what it looks like when you've removed the excess and given it a little bit of a buff. And we'll just do this one area here. Maybe right, this is a good area. It's got a lot of cracking here, so you can see how it's sitting in those recessed, cracked areas. This definitely looks like an old door. I'm really happy how this milk painted door turned out. It is a true reproduction of an inspiration I had of an old Swedish barn door, from the cracked milk paint to the old wood shining through the areas where the chippiness has happened, and the rusted hardware. It's all come together and it looks amazing. I hope you have learned a few things, enjoyed the tutorial. Please leave us a comment or any questions.